Welcome to the Girl Podcast, the show where purpose meets inspiration. Each week, I sit down with incredible individuals who open up about their real life journeys, the wins, the setbacks, and the lessons in between. Whether you're navigating career moves, entrepreneurship, or personal growth, you're in the right place. I am Kyra Mitchell Lewis, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's glow up together. All right, happy Thursday, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you're having a fantastic week. All right, excited about our guest today. Our guest is LaKiesha Tomlin. She is a trading mentor, engineer, and founder of Thriving Ambition Inc. After funding sabbaticals, travel, and paying down debt through her trading journey, she now teaches ambitious women how to build a second income using simpler, beginner-friendly strategies. Now, that's something we love here is that someone who's going to come in and tell us how to actually do something. I am very excited to hear what she has to say, what types of tips she can give us, because I myself am someone who is not good at trading, but pretends to try it, from time to time. But we're definitely looking forward to hearing from her how to increase my knowledge and how to actually become good at it and to make that second income. Because who doesn't want a second income? All right, let's grab LaKiesha and bring her into the chat. All right, welcome back, everyone, and let's welcome LaKiesha to the show. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Kyra. Happy to be here.
Yes, well, she is going to drop some nuggets for us today, but we are going to start by having her tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes, so my name is LaKiesha Tomlin, and I help people understand the markets in a simple and structured way. And the way that I do it is I encourage them to keep their job while they learn how to trade the markets because the goal is to make it a second income stream in addition to their job.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. I like that you preface, don't quit today.
Yes.
Hey, don't quit, y'all. Okay, well, let's dive into even your story. Like, let's talk about the moment that trade it shifted from an interest for you to a freedom tool in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey for me in this whole market space was actually about 15 years ago. And at that time, I was getting ready to graduate from undergrad. I studied mechanical engineering. And I knew that, people made money from the markets, but I just didn't know how. And at that time, it was all gloom and doom because it was 2008. This is 2009 when I graduated. So it was really close to that time. And I was just afraid to just put any money inside of the market because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I really didn't feel comfortable, just taking some money and putting it there. So, fast forward to some years, I had just started small with about $1,000 investing at that time in Apple. So, not financial advice, just what I did. But basically,
Mhm.
$1,000 that bought me 3 shares. And, it's just taken off from there. Basically, I knew I had the desire. So that was number one. And then number two is like, okay, if you really want this thing, how can you, understand it? So one of my friends at work, actually, who sat right next to me in a cube, he said, hey, if you want to know, about the markets, because he already has some investments and some of my other friends had some investments as well. He's like, go to investopedia.com and just start understanding the language because that was one of the things that was the most intimidating for me, especially like a newbie, because I'm like, diversification, okay, kind of understand what that means.
Mhm.
Market capitalization, what the heck is that? Um, and basically, market cap is a short way of saying that, but basically it's just if you had the money to buy a company, this is how much it would cost to buy. So that's all that means. So
Mhm.
anyway, but just went there and just started researching. And then over time, I want to say fast forward to about 2015, 2016, I had gotten a new job in a new location. And it was a promotion, but I knew that there was more. I was like, okay, I'm making some more money now. At that point, I had just paid off my student loans from undergrad. Thank God. Um, so I just paid those off. And I was just like, okay, now I have this extra money. What can I do with this money? So that's when I really got serious about investing. And at that time, I was trading, but I didn't know that I was trading because the
Mm,
biggest
mhm,
difference between those two is investing, you hold it for years, decades sometimes, and then trading, you're holding it for either, a day, a few minutes,
mhm,
so weeks
mhm,
or months. And that's what I was doing, just holding it for months and then like buying something, like taking the profits and buying something else.
mhm,
So and that inspiration for me came from actually reading this woman's book where she was working this corporate job in DC and she had this dream of living in Hawaii. So I
mhm.
don't know how I found this lady. I think it was on YouTube or something, but amazing book, amazing lady. I ended up like purchasing some of her things later on down the line, but it really gave me the inspiration to save for, my goal of taking a year off from work to just travel because I didn't have the option for a gap year or anything
Mhm,
like
yeah.
that. It was like graduate high school, and then I was in a summer program at the university, like that gap in between high school and college.
Mhm,
And then it was just like that next year, I wanted a job because I didn't want to just like do nothing for the summer. So I got an internship at at a top aerospace company. Everybody's heard of it. But basically, got an internship there and they just kept bringing me back. So I basically haven't had any breaks. So I was like, okay,
mhm.
I want to take this break. And I knew that the stock market was going to be the best way to fund that. So I set a goal based on the stuff that I read and just kept going from there.
Awesome. That's very inspiring. So let's talk about, so I think when you went into it, did you have any misconceptions? And I think like a lot of people may be listening now or watching us and they're saying, yeah, but like I don't this they said this thing. What do you
Mhm.
see out there from people who are like hesitant to like even, venture into the space because it's just a misconception that they've heard out there in the world?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones, well, actually, there's a couple, so I don't know how much time we got, but then I'll keep it to a few. But basically, one of the biggest ones is that the market is manipulated, and there is some of that does happen. It's usually like a hedge fund or something where they could,
Mhm,
move a particular market, but generally, it's not going to be anything big like Apple or Amazon that's just worth so much. It's usually going to be a smaller company where the company's not worth that much
mhm,
relatively to those companies, and it is easier to move those markets. So, but generally, you're not going to find that too much on those like really big popular names, not at all.
mhm,
So that's one misconception. Another misconception is that people who day trade or people who trade are all driving Lamborghinis. Like that's not that's not reality. There are so many different types of traders out there and they trade for different reasons. So, like I was saying before, my goal initially was to get enough money to be able to take a year off from work and just travel. And
mhm,
I had a number in mind. So, I had that like freedom number in mind. And at that time, that was $60,000 for me at that time. It's way more now. But at the time, 60K, and the markets helped me hit that. About say if I'm doing the math, yeah, it's like 2.5 years later. So, I know that it's possible because some people question whether or not people are actually making money from the market. Especially, some people may have gotten burned from 2008, or maybe they heard stories from other people.
mhm,
And, everybody's just going to have their own experience. But I believe that one of the biggest things that hold people back is the lack of information, the lack of
mhm,
understanding. So those things create fear. And then people just either don't bother or they just, assume things that may not be true. So I've always
mhm,
been a believer of figuring things out for myself. Like, even when it comes to things that are simple, like reading Yelp reviews and stuff like that, like if you look at
mhm,
a handful of them, like, yeah, it kinda makes sense, maybe you wanna be cautious, but even sometimes I still, frequent not frequent, but I still go to that particular, company or restaurant or whatever because I wanna know for myself, because
right,
usually the only time people really leave reviews is when they're pissed off. Like, they don't, like, be
exactly.
happy and then be like, "Oh, yeah, let me leave a nice review."
Mhm.
Like No.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's kinda like that with the market. It's just more of, trying to understand just little things, for yourself, if I'm, talking to somebody, learn it for yourself and just start small. Like, you don't like the goal. And another thing is, like, the goal is not just to hop into the market and start making money tomorrow. It's to understand. And I spent a good year plus just trying to understand the markets before I felt comfortable putting my first dollar in. And that was even
Mhm.
for my retirement account for work. So it was like 2010. That's when I started investing in my retirement account, because even though I started in 2009, I needed like every single cent of the money that I was getting. Just a whole bunch of life changes at that point. And
Mhm.
then 2010, I started to invest in my retirement. And then 2011, then that's when put money into my own brokerage account. Basically, it's just like a bank account where you could buy shares. So,
Mhm.
it's just a process.
Mhm, mhm. No, I appreciate that because I think, also you don't want people to think like it say, I put money in today and then tomorrow I'm rich or whatever, I hit my number or things like that. That it does take time and that you have to be willing to put in the work to learn. And I love
Right.
that you said that, like you started to learn and to educate yourself and you took the time because that and also too, like, with you saying it took you 2 years, I appreciate, like, the realistic like, you're being real about what that looked like for you to hit the number that you had in mind, but people have to understand that 2 years goes really quickly.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, because life is just, life in. Like, basically, for me, there were some times where I didn't look at the market all the time. It would maybe be days or weeks before I looked
Mhm,
at it again, just because, life. And I remember in this time frame, I had gotten another promotion, and it was just crazy, crazy type of work, and I would
mhm.
look at it and be like, "Oh, shoot, it went up like another $1,000. Okay, great." You know? So and that's kinda how it was when I realized I had that freedom number. I actually had more than that, because at that point, I got another job that was more money, more responsibility, global responsibility at that time, and I was, like, traveling 50% of the time,
Mhm,
in the US and then also internationally as well. And I wasn't really thinking about my accounts. I was just putting
mhm,
money in and then,
mhm,
following my plan during that
mhm.
time. And then, one tired Sunday morning, I opened up my brokerage account. I'm like, wait, I got my number. Like, like I can technically quit. And I actually did a couple weeks later. I did quit.
Oh,
So because I had the money, I had more than that, and then I actually got
mhm,
more money from the company I was working for, because,
mm,
part of their, compensation program was giving you stock, and
mhm,
yeah, and it's like, it's great, so it's just like an added benefit,
mhm.
um, of that at that particular time.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's talk about the freedom numbers. So,
Yeah.
what are they and why are they powerful?
Yes. So for me, a freedom number is just basically uh something that in this situation, it was something that I defined based on my goals. So like
Mhm,
taking off for a year was a big goal for me. It was scary because I didn't really know anything outside of just working, all
mhm,
the time. Because even in undergrad, I had like 2, 3 jobs on the side, like
mhm,
working as like a student aide, in like the diversity office at my campus, and then I was also a math tutor on campus, and then I became a math tutor at a college. I worked at Macy's during Christmas, so it's like all I knew was like work,
Work.
work, work, work. So that was a big goal. So I knew, and I just calculated what I needed. So at that time, I said I wanted to keep my same level of living. Like at the time, I had a car note, insurance, rent, if I wanted to live
Mhm,
somewhere, wherever I was going, I started calculating, how much rent would cost in that area just on average. And then there was like,
mhm,
sites that we still have like Numbeo or whatever, like those types of sites. I think that's the name. But anyway, a cost of living calculator and
mhm,
just trying to figure that out. And that's how I came up with that $60,000, because, my plan was like, okay, I can park my car at my mom's house. I don't want to pay for that,
mhm,
and family can take care of my car, whatever. So like, it was something I wasn't thinking about, and I didn't have to think about because I
Mhm.
built a whole bunch of things inside of that freedom number. So,
Right.
just knowing what you need, basically.
Mhm.
And, that's the best way to start. And, what I realized, though, with that freedom number is that I am way more bougie than I thought, especially traveling in Europe because I mean, during the first sabbatical, I spent 2 months in mostly going around France. I went to Switzerland, I went to Belgium, and was just traveling all around. I went to the south
Mhm.
of France. That was my
Mhm.
first time there. I'd stayed in Cannes. So everybody
Mm,
knows like the
mhm.
Cannes
Yeah,
Film
yeah.
Festival. So like I remember they were setting up for that. I mean, I wasn't there when it was going, but they were setting up for that, and I stayed at a hotel on the beach. So my room had an ocean
Oh,
or
yeah,
or
yeah,
beach
you
beach
definitely
view.
was.
So, yeah, and I remember, like, 4 days was, like $4,200 or something like that. So
Mhm.
it was not cheap. But, I realized that, I'm glad that I had, the freedom number plus a little bit of margin. It's just like, in project management or whatever, people, create a budget for themselves or whatever,
Mhm.
you have a little bit of margin, and that little bit of margin really helped out a lot because I didn't feel like I always had to get the cheapest option when I was traveling.
Right.
So,
Mhm. Yeah.
like, the first 2 weeks I spent at a friend's house, a friend in France I had met through work, like, years later,
Mhm.
but his family, was away in South America for the rest of the summer, but he had to work, so he had to stay back, and he was like, "You can have a kid's room," so they had a bunk bed, I was on the top bunk, the dog was on the bottom bunk, and it was free for 2 weeks in Paris. I
Mhm.
was like, "I will take it." Um, and then, like, after that, I rented an apartment for about 3 weeks in Paris, and then I did some other stuff, like, I stayed in, a Airbnb in Switzerland. It was like now these days, I won't do this, but at the time I did. It was, like, a guy, his son, like, teenage son, and, like, their dog. They were
Mhm.
super nice, they made dinner, it was funny, like, a couple times the kid was like the father kept trying to offer me food, he was, like, saying in whatever language, like, "Hey, she doesn't want that." So but anyway, it was just an incredible experience,
Mhm.
and, for my family that, hadn't, like, really traveled all that much, like, of course, they were concerned for my safety and all of that,
Mhm.
but, it's like I'm not going out there intentionally doing things that are unsafe,
Right.
I'm looking around and being careful and,
Mhm.
if need be, the training that I received in North City, St. Louis may have come in handy, um, if you know what I mean, um
LaKiesha Light, put the
Right, or them hands, right. So if I need to, but, it was none of that. It was just,
Yeah.
great experience. I remember walking down, these, like, dark like, in Europe, it's, like, a little bit different in some spots, but, like, dark, streets. Nobody
Mhm.
bothered me, nobody saying anything to me. Like, it's just fine.
Mhm.
But of course, it's not like that everywhere, but, in my experience, it was just great, to be able to have the experiences that I wanted to be able
Mhm.
to, have a mix of things that were like, affordable versus, really
Mhm.
upscale and just really just having a great time. And I thought it was going to be a problem coming back to the States and looking for a job at that time because I needed some more money. I needed some more money so I could put back into the market, and I didn't. Like any job search, it takes time. It took about 4 months, and at that point, I had a couple of jobs that I could pick from, which was good. But, in every interview, they would ask me about my travels because I put it on my resume. I was like, personal development, traveled through France, Switzerland, and Belgium, learning French because that was my goal. And they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, wow, tell us about this." So anyway.
Wow, that I love that, and I think I heard you say the first sabbatical. So did you
Yes.
go tell us about the second time?
Yes. So once I went back and I got the job, I got more money. This time I was a lot more wiser. I knew that I needed to double my freedom number. So at that point, it was about like 120K. Overall, doing some of the same strategies that I did inside of the market and
Mhm.
growing it and just being in some situations taking a smaller portion and just being very aggressive. That really
Mhm.
paid off. And and then I remember getting to this point, let's see, 19 it was 2 it took 2 years this time to make double, and,
Mhm.
the market was really good too, so that helps. But this time, 2 years to make double, exactly 2 years to make double, and then the second sabbatical was me focused on my MBA from Yale, so at that point, I got into the Executive MBA program. I
Mhm.
had finished 1 year while working. It was a lot of work. Um, I remember hearing people talk about their MBA experience like, "Oh, we wrote a lot of papers." Yeah, at Yale, you don't really write papers. It's a lot of math and stuff. I felt like I was in undergrad again. There was so much math. I mean, but it was a great program. So I was like, okay, well, what would this look like if I took the second year off from work and just focused on the MBA program? Then I could travel a little bit more and do all these
Mhm.
other things. So that was my intention for the second sabbatical. And like I said, it took me 2 years to do that, and I got instead of the 120, I was up to 140 in the money, like, this is like stocks and just like cash in my
Mhm.
savings. So, that's all great. Once I hit that number, once again, left and, told my boss, like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. He's like, hey, good luck. Let me know what you do afterwards, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, so finished the program. And then I ended up taking an additional year off from work. So I took 2 years off from work at
Mhm.
that point. And also during this time, it was a little bit different from the first. I actually, started a romantic relationship with someone, fell in
Mhm.
love, and we moved in together. And I mean, here we are, almost 6 years. Wow, at the end of this year, it'd be 6 years. But
Awesome.
but yeah, but we've been together the entire time, and
Mhm.
he's very traditional, corporate, and he's at work now. But basically, it was good. Like this time around, I had like a support system in terms of like, okay, I
Mhm.
didn't really have to think about rent. I mean, I still paid all my other stuff because I mean, in my eyes, that's still my responsibility. So,
Mhm.
but for like the stuff for the house, I didn't really have to think about that this time. So I think that was, in addition to having more money, but then also having, the support system really helped a lot, and that allowed me to
Mhm.
extend that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of like travel, just like really like getting to know some of my
Mhm.
classmates, and just really like focus on the content. And I felt like I really enjoyed the second year, for
Mhm.
those reasons, and for the fact that the workload is a little bit lighter. Like that first year is just brutal,
Mhm.
really brutal.
Oh my gosh, I love that. What a great story and very inspiring. And it's like and it just goes to show like the discipline, like you had a
Hmm.
goal, you're disciplined, and then you got to enjoy it, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to put in the work to be able to get to the thing and then
Hmm.
enjoy the thing. And I think
Hmm.
like so many people could a lot of us could learn from that because I think even as you mentioned, like all you knew was like work, 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 work. Like you were working all the time and you've been
Yep.
working since you were young and now it's still work. And it's just like sometimes like people have to being able to like carve out that time for yourself. And I love that you called it personal development because that's just what it was. You went off and you weren't like, yes, you had a good time, but you also learning and learning about different cultures and communities and bettering yourself and improving the person that you are. So I think it's like a win-win all around.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was funny at that time for the first sabbatical, I was trying to figure out what to call it. Like, I didn't wanna just call it like, "Hey, I quit my job and traveled," or like backpacking through Europe. I'm not a
Hmm.
backpacking, camping type of woman,
Yeah.
not at all. So I was trying to figure out what to call it, and I was just doing some Googling, some research,
Hmm.
and that's what I called it. Because, yeah, it was personal development in the sense of learning French. I did have a French tutor for a few weeks, and then
Hmm.
me, trying to navigate my way around these different cities, some of these cities I'd never been to before in my life in a different language. So I
Hmm.
remember going to when I was in Brussels, going to this store, trying like it was like a store and they had like a bunch of like knickknacks and stuff. And I was trying to
Hmm.
negotiate the price of something in French. And I mean, I wasn't successful in a negotiation because at the end, me and the guy, I start laughing and we talked a little bit. But it was an experience for
Hmm.
sure. And it was, just a lot of self-sufficiency because I mean, none of my family lives there.
Mhm,
Like, there's
mhm.
really no one to call or anything like
Yeah,
that. It's just navigating and just finding my way
yeah.
through it and, navigating uncertainty at times where I
Mhm,
remember I was leaving or looking to leave Geneva, that's where I went, Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland,
mhm.
and, taking a bus, but then I couldn't find the bus station. There were like 2 different ones, and then, by the time I got to the place I needed to be, the bus had already left, and then I needed to get a new ticket and some other stuff, and then, hopping on like a coach type of bus and then getting to the border back into France, they're, on the guys checking the passports and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then I realized there were 2 Americans sitting right next to me, which is pretty cool. And we started talking.
So I love that, and so that leads me to my next question because
Yeah.
you help women, and this is you can't be fearful and do the things that you did, right? So
Right.
how do you help women move from fear and overwhelm? Because all the thought of that for some people, even listening to you tell this story, it could be like, oh my God, I can never, or oh, that feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do you help them move to a confident action to be able to like step out and do it?
So that is an excellent question because the way that I got the courage and, to take this sort of action was actually learning about other women who did the same thing.
Mm.
So like I talked about at the beginning of this, the woman who
Mhm.
packed up her stuff and she moved to Hawaii and some other places. I can't remember every place, but
Mhm.
she was a solo traveler. So before I embarked on this journey, I started reading like Reddit forums and stuff like that about what it's like to be a solo woman traveler and,
Mhm.
just things to think about. So, like I said before, I'm not a backpacking, camping, definitely not a hostel type of
Yeah.
girl. I didn't
Mhm.
stay in any hostels. I went to a party at one time, and it was just some people I met on like Meetup. And I went to a couple of those. That was fun when I was in Paris. And I remember like talking to one. These are all like Americans, by the way, but talking to one of the guys, and I saw like this big rat like crawl across the floor. I'm like, "Yep, glad I'm not staying here." Like, it was huge. It was almost like a small dog. It was so big.
Oh God. Oh wow.
But
Woo.
anyway, yeah, just, the courage to do these type of things, from the thing that helped me was seeing other people do it and seeing
Mhm.
other people who look like me do this because,
Mhm.
I mean, I grew up in the Midwest and my family on both sides came from the South. And that's just a whole different mentality right there. And every like I would talk to my like grandparents or like my great grandparents, at that time when they were alive, mostly like great grandmothers and my great aunt. And I remember like saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and every response was, "By yourself?" And I talked to like somebody else, and they'd be like, "Okay, by yourself?" Like it was
Mhm. Mhm.
always the same type of
Mhm.
response, and I said, "Yeah, why not?"
Yeah.
And before even taking that leap to go to Europe, I would just take trips in the United States by myself and just kind of
Mhm.
get comfortable with, being in a new city. Even if
Mhm.
I could, call like a parent or somebody like that a new city. And my I did internships, and we would have these like kind of like intern professional development things. I was a part of Inroads when I was in undergrad, and it would be in different towns like Knoxville or not
Mhm.
Knoxville, Nashville or someplace around there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was me experiencing at that time traveling by myself. And then once I became an adult, doing that, again, just kind of like
Mhm.
exploring and just seeing, what it's like to be in a new city by myself. Like what would I do? And, just, after a while it just became second nature. And then the first trip that I took internationally was to Paris.
Mhm.
It started off as me and a friend, years ago making plans to go. And as it got
Mhm.
closer, I heard from her less and less. And I remember telling her, "Hey, I'm going with or without you."
Mhm.
So, I made my plans, and I had one friend at that time, from work,
Mhm.
there that just walked me around, just showed me the town, and I feel like, Paris is like my second home because I've been there so many times, and I could
Mhm.
find my way around. But, the first time it was, all new and exciting. And if it wasn't, from seeing other people do it and then also just exploring on my own in my own country, sometimes even in my own state,
Mhm.
like, I think it would have been a bit tougher. I probably would have felt out of my element, but because I've
Right.
taken those steps,
Mhm.
it didn't
Yeah.
seem like a really big deal.
Yeah. No, I love that. All right. Wow, you are a wealth of like stories and information, and it's been so great. It's been feel like I can keep talking to you. But I do want to ask because someone might be listening now and saying, like, what does simple trading look like for a person who's never done it, but they're starting from zero? Like, what would you say? What does that look like for someone?
Yes, that's actually an excellent question, and I actually just wrote someone this morning with this. So I'm just gonna I don't remember everything I typed, to her, but I'm gonna sum it up. So basically, I just had someone who joined, my flagship program, the Profitable Traders Academy, who, she saw me on LinkedIn. Long story short, now she's a part of the program as of a few days ago, and she was asking, "Okay, like, where do I start inside of the program?" So I told her, first off, congratulations for taking this first step because a lot of people think about it, but they don't take any steps to get started.
Mhm,
So the
mhm,
fact that she did that is huge. So I told her to be proud of herself for that. And
mhm,
then the next thing I told her is that, don't worry about, trying to make money tomorrow. This is your time to build understanding. So the way that I have things set up inside of the classroom portion of the Profitable Traders Academy is it's laid out. I have a start here for like all like the admin stuff and then a start trading for like really introductory stuff. So that way people can get an overview, people can get the basics. And I created it so that way people can literally start there when it comes to trading. So that's the first thing. And one of the biggest things I believe inside of this area is the terminology. Because a lot of times, like even if people are watching YouTube videos or something like that,
mhm,
just like hearing these words, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean?
mhm,
Okay, I see what they're
mhm,
doing, but why are they pressing that button? Just like all
mhm,
these like different things. So I wanted to break it down as simply as possible there. So understanding the terminology. So it's the key things that I use, but like I mentioned earlier, Investopedia is a great way for people to start understanding that terminology, of the market, the language of the market. The next thing I told her was to take her time. There's no rush. I'm here to, in the program, I'm there to support her
mhm,
and in the community as well, because I've had several people that, had this goal of understanding the markets, but didn't really know where to start. And then it's that like
mhm,
question of who to trust, because there's so many different people out there.
mhm.
And so I'm glad, these people chose me, and I'm going to
Right.
do what I need to do in order to help them be successful. So, as far as starting, it's starting very simply, terminology, and then also just understanding how to read the charts. That's the next thing I talk about inside of that area. And I
Mhm,
go through very simply like, okay, this is like this type of chart. This is, this little thing here is called a candlestick. This is what the top of it means. This is what
mhm,
this means.
mhm.
Like, so just like really going into like and breaking it down to the most elemental um basics, like that's something that people, could probably Google. But one of the things
Mhm,
is like, when you're first starting, like, a lot of times seeing these other people who are successful, it can be really easy to jump in, okay, I just want to make money.
mhm.
That is not the right mindset. I'm just gonna say that. Um, Mainly because, like, yes, that's the end goal, but that's not where you start.
Right, right.
So, so yeah, so starting is terminology, understanding the charts, like what's actually on the chart, what does everything
Mhm,
mean on the chart, and those
mhm,
things come from time. It's not going to be an instant thing. And then also another thing I want to say inside of the Profitable Traders Academy, there's another woman who started, I want to say around like Thanksgiving time frame, and she was one that had the goal, didn't know anything, and now, fast forward months later, she's been, showing up to classes, asking questions, and doing what she needs to do on her end. Because she was
mhm,
laid off, and she's like, while I'm looking for a job, I'm gonna understand this finally. So
mhm,
good for her, because most people just like try to hoard the money and like don't
mhm,
develop themselves. But she jumped in, and now, yesterday, actually, was this 2 days ago now? 2 days ago, she showed me how she took, this particular it's a long-term investment, but she took the position and now she's in profit quite a bit. And
Mm,
she was, so excited. Of course, I'm excited for her because,
mhm.
this was her first, one where she fully knew what was happening, and she was asking
Right.
me for some feedback on,
Mhm.
these charts that she had marked up. So,
Mm,
and they were actually really great. There was just like a couple things that needed a fix, but she was good.
awesome.
So so I know
Mm,
that it's possible for people to start
mhm.
from 0 to get to a point, months later, not, hours later, of, being able to
Right.
potentially, make money in the market. Because all I'm doing in these programs is just sharing my experience from my point of view, and of
Mhm.
course, it's up to them to make their own financial decisions with their own money.
Mhm. Right. Now tell people who are interested how they can join the Profitable Traders Academy and how they can reach out to you online.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to check that out is just to go to lakeishatrades.com. So that's LAKIESHA trades. And all the information is there for that program. And then I'm also on YouTube. It's just my name, LaKiesha Tomlin. LinkedIn, same thing. It's just my name, LaKiesha Tomlin. And then also Instagram, you can search for my name, or my handle is called Chart Confidence, just because I want people to have confidence on the charts.
Awesome. I love it. All right.
Yes.
Do you have about 5 more minutes? We can go
Yeah,
through. Okay.
absolutely. Let's go.
Fantastic. We're going to do
Yeah.
three things with Lakeisha, and I'm going to ask you three questions that just helps our audience get to know you even better.
Okay,
The
cool.
first one is a two-parter. How do you start and end the day?
Ooh. Okay, so the way I start the day is usually I wake up before my alarm that's set at 5 a.m. I don't know what's happening, but I will pop up at like 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, get my phone and like check messages throughout the night, check, the markets and just see where things are. And then I pop up, get ready, and then I head down to my computer and get prepared for the market. Now, I don't do something in the market every day. I just kind of look. And the way that I end my day is usually in a similar way, but a lot more chill. So a lot of times I will like take my shower at night just because it relaxes me. And then in the morning, I can just pop right up and just get going. So I do that. I listen to something relaxing like music or audiobook, like jazz or chill hop or something like that, just something
Mhm.
real low key. A lot of times I will spend time with my partner. Him and I will like watch, certain shows on TV, and we then just go to bed and then just rinse and repeat. So, it's pretty like normal.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. The second question is what's a current goal or intention that you're focusing on?
Ooh, actually, I have a couple, and I had to chop that list down recently. So, one of my immediate goals is to get really proficient in French. So, I've been learning French off and on for well over a decade, more off than on, for sure. And I told myself, why I have this time now, why not do something that's going to really push my French along? So, actually, at the end of this month, I'm heading to France for a month, and I'm going to be a part of this like language school where
Mhm.
it's nothing but French, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week,
Mm.
and I hope to come back like damn near fluent. So,
We hope so too.
yeah.
All right. And the last question is where are you currently finding inspiration?
Ooh, where I find inspiration these days is, just by reading different books about different people. So a lot of the books that I read are usually nonfiction. It's usually like
Mhm.
about someone or like a topic. So I read books on Warren Buffett, like that should be an obvious thing, especially because I like the market. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and then also I started reading this book by Tony Robbins. Someone had given it to me years ago as a gift. It's called it's the money one. I forgot the name of it. But anyway, it's Tony Robbins. So I started reading that. And I also really like Grant Cardone in terms
Mhm.
of like his drive and motivation, just get things done. I feel like sometimes like I'm mostly self-motivated, but sometimes I just need like that external
Mhm.
like motivation. So I like him, I like David Goggins. Like it's just like basically just get up and do it. So, like I
Mhm.
know to do that, but like just hearing that sometimes this is really
Mhm.
motivational.
Yeah.
Because all this stuff I'm doing, I really don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
But I have goals and things that I want to accomplish. So, I need to continue to make movement. And sometimes that movement just means, doing nothing. So it's
Mhm.
it's also trying to, not only get inspiration from, these people that I read about or listen to, but at the same time, inside of myself, knowing when it's time to take a break, whether it's
Mhm.
taking a couple hours or maybe like a day or two, or even a little bit longer. So
Mhm.
that way I can recalibrate and get myself back on track.
Right. Awesome. I love it. Well, LaKiesha, I have really enjoyed this conversation and your story is very inspiring. Good luck next month when you go off and you come back fluent in
Yes.
French. Before I let you go, I have one last question, and that is what are three things you'd like the audience to take away from our conversation today?
Ooh, yes. So I was thinking about this, and one of the biggest things I want people to take away is if you have a desire to, learn the markets or whatever it is, to, read about it yourself first a little bit, just so that way you know at least something. But most importantly, find a mentor. Because earlier in my journey of, the markets, I'll take this as an example. Like I knew kind of what I was doing because I was researching and stuff like that. But then it got to a point where I had a really huge loss, and I was like, okay, maybe there's like something I was missing. And then it was through a mentor months later, after I found one, that I knew where I messed up and how to not make that mistake again. And I'm proud to say, what was that, like 5 years ago? Wow. Almost 5 years ago, I have not made that mistake again. So,
Mhm.
getting a mentor, that's going to be really helpful in anything that you want to do. Second, in terms of doing, I like to do things that challenge me intellectually. So, whatever it is, just take that first step. It doesn't have to be like, something like huge, like whatever that is to you, just taking that first step, towards that thing. What I found is that, like, once I start and then I start to go down a rabbit hole, especially because it's something that I'm interested in, and then I just continue going. Um, I see the third thing I want people to take away is, basically, don't let anyone talk you out of your dreams. Don't let anyone talk you out of doing things that you really want to do. It may not make sense to other people. It may be weird, crazy, whatever it
Mhm.
is, in terms of, as long
Mhm.
as, it's good, for you and maybe good for your family and stuff like that, like, just go
Mhm.
ahead and just do it. Like, don't let other people's opinions stop you, just because at the end of the day, you have to live with you, and you have to live with the regret of not making the decision, not them. So those are my three
Exactly.
takeaways.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Lakeisha, thank you so much again. You can always come back here to share with us in the future.
Yes, this was great, Kyra. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Stay tuned, everyone. All right. Welcome back. And let's thank Lakeisha one more time for joining the show today. I mean, such a great, inspiring story she is. And I really just love the fact that she's like, just goes after the confidence of going after what she wants. But as you remember, what she said was something really important is that she, kind of had this confidence built by, learning from other people. So, it's really important to like sort of find your people, find the people you connect to who are doing the things. Like it's always something we talk about here. Like you're always trying to connect to people who are like at the place where you think you might want to be and learn from them. So, if you want to learn more about LaKiesha and the work she does, you can check out all the links in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about us at Glow Up Girl, you can visit glowupgirl.com and make sure you sign up for our newsletter to get tools, insights, and inspiration for your own glow up journey. All right, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. We are at Glow Up Girl, and wherever you're listening, don't forget to rate, review, and also share. Helps more people find the show. And if you're sharing anything of ours on social, make sure you tag us in. All right. If you are someone who's like this year, I every time I listen to a podcast, I go, this should be me. I need to tell my story. I have a great story to share, but you're not quite sure what that story looks like. Make sure you check out offering that I have called Story Labs. It's at glowupgirl.com/story-labs. There, you and I will book some time together. We will talk about how to develop your own personal narrative so that you can pitch yourself for podcasts, for speaking events, panels, all the good things that maybe you have said, I want to do, but I don't quite know what that secret formula is about, how to pull my story together. So make sure you check that out. All right. Last, if you're a brand, you're looking to partner with this community, reach out, hello@globeGirl.com, or you can check out the sponsorship options on our website. All right. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join and listen or watch wherever you may be in the world. So I will see you all next week. Until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.